construction loans made easy.
Ryan, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast.
It's my pleasure, Ed. Thank you.
All right, so today we're talking about new construction condos. You are an expert in the Chicago market, so I'm really looking forward to kind of picking your brain on this. As a lot of people know, the inventory in Chicago is very, very, very thin. Chicago is a market where new construction condos are of great value. But I'll probably ask you some questions for all types of markets. Times where inventory is thin, and it's a seller's market versus the alternative where it's a buyer's market. But I guess start with new construction condos. I guess, is there any particular ideal buyer that kind of fits well to be a good fit for purchasing a new construction condo?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought about this, and I think that your ideal buyer changes by neighborhood. So if you're looking at new construction opportunities in the Gold Coast, River North neighborhood, you're probably talking about the buyers that are at the very upper end of the price spectrum.
Okay.
And then that's probably true in Lincoln Park as well, and Lakeview and North Center or Roscoe Village. As you get in Bucktown, and then as you get into the other neighborhoods, and that's probably true in Wicker Park too, even though there's not a lot of condo development there at the moment.
Right.
As you get into the next, so I call those your A neighborhoods, only because that's where the prices are the highest. It's no judgment on anything other than price.
Right.
As you get into the next, the B neighborhoods, now this is where it gets interesting. Those are people that would like to live in the A neighborhoods,
right?
But the product that they want at their price point doesn't exist.
So the developers are developing a lower price point with the assumption that the buyers will need to be in that price point?
That's a good question. I would say that in my experience, the builders are building wherever they can build.
Yeah.
If they think it'll sell and they can get the dirt, meaning the lot, for the price they need to get it for to make money on the back end, then they're going to build it. They're going to buy it and they're going to build it. I'm actually not, I don't know where you would have to go to find a builder that's not interested in building.
Yeah.
I know a guy who's building affordable housing, in partnership with some nonprofits in the city. The funny thing is it's just the minimum cost to build a home. I think is somewhere in, you'd be able to tell me this. If you're looking at your 2,500 square foot home, I think the minimum cost is somewhere around $400,000 on the bare minimum. So, and then the price of the dirt is never free. Even if the city's giving it away, there's some environmental cleanup probably that the developer has to do, and then they have to make a profit. So, the entry level price that I can think of in the city of Chicago has got to be $500 minimum anywhere,
right,
without assistance. So, it's always, and this is to come back to your question, in any given neighborhood, it's always the buyers that are at the top of the market for that particular type of product that are buying new construction, because the product is the top of the market price wise in any given neighborhood. Yeah.
Which of course can sometimes be appraisal challenges, right? Until that price of the market price is marked as a sale. And that's just the nature of when we're doing single family construction, people, time tends to mean that prices go up. So a high end of the market price from last year, all things being equal, will be higher this year just because prices went up. So it just continues to be higher and higher prices.
That's the way it seems to be going since 2020. Yes.
And then I guess as far as trade-offs between the buying the existing condos versus the brand new ones, I imagine those trade-offs often will in some way dictate the type of buyer who fits well with new construction as well. I guess maybe touch on some of the trade-offs between old and new.
Yeah, I mean, so again, we have to take out the A neighborhoods because at the A neighborhood there is no trade-off.
Gotcha.
It's just, can your budget absorb the opportunity easily, or can you absorb the opportunity easily due to your budget? So, I think those buyers just buy whatever they want.
Right.
The reason they're probably buying new construction, and by new construction, we're talking about buying it from a developer, someone who's
That's right.
building the home on spec.
Yeah, where you're driving by and like you said, there's dirt,
Yeah.
maybe a
Yeah.
sign that says, "Hey, we're building a 4-unit condo. Give us
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
call if you want to
Right.
make us an offer."
Right. So, those buyers are, for whatever reason, are not in the market for a custom single family home, which the costs on that are right now astronomical. If you think buying a new construction condo or single family is expensive, try building one.
Right.
And that's truly those are the buyers that just have the means to do whatever they want to do.
Correct.
When it comes to buying a new construction condo, sorry, circle back to the question in the A neighborhood. Your question was
Just really the trade-offs
the trade-offs. Yeah.
Retail versus.
Yeah. So the trade-off in the A neighborhoods, I guess this is kind of true within the A neighborhood. You're probably sacrificing on on location a little bit. I think 9 Walton is a perfect example,
Right.
that JDL did. If that building was just 2 blocks east of where it is, and maybe not even 2 blocks, if it was 150 yards east of where
Right.
it is, I think that building would have been 20% more expensive.
Right.
Now, I think the market has caught up with it a little bit, given that it is, the most luxurious, newer construction building in the Gold Coast. And it certainly helps that JB Pritzker bought, one of the Citadel guys' condos, so on and so forth. So it's becoming okay, but I still think there are buyers that if it was just a quarter mile east, they'd be a lot more interested in the homes in there than they currently are.
Yeah.
So within Gold Coast, Lincoln Park, whatever, you're probably sacrificing on location just a little bit. You're not exactly where the sweet spot is. You're just on the peripheral.
Okay.
If you are buying in one of the B neighborhoods, that's definitely a location trade-off. You want something new. You've probably come from somewhere where you lived in a dated home. You were tired of maintenance. For
Right.
whatever reason, new construction is the only answer for you. Well, then the trade-off is you're not exactly where you want to be. Because if you could be, then you would be there. Like your budget would afford that.
Find one. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
right. That's right. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I would imagine there's also trade-offs of, there's always concern about special assessments and all those kind of things, and maybe increased HOA dues to cover reserves. I guess you have some of those typical trade-offs between old and new, I would imagine.
So this is where I probably am at odds a little bit with many people. I think it's a misnomer that buying new construction is the safest play from a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah.
I have found in my career that if a building has the potential of having an issue, you're not going to know about it within the first year. which I'm guessing is no accident why most developers' warranties are a year.
Right.
I actually think that if you want the safest maintenance play on a purchase, it's probably a 2 to 4 year old condo,
Gotcha.
because whatever issues there are with the building have surfaced.
Yes.
The inspector can now find that evidence and point to something, or the building's already found it and it's in their meeting minutes. They've already, initiated repairs. Even better, they're still within the window of time that they can go after the developer for those repairs.
Right.
So it's not coming out of their pocket. So this misnomer that new construction gives me the safest play on maintenance, I don't agree with that. I think that it is that 2 to 4 year old condo is even better.
Yeah, that makes sense. That 2 to 4 year window sweet spot. I thought you might have been going back to older buildings that might have a higher level of construction. That maybe they were built better, but I would imagine there's a line at a certain point where maybe
Yeah.
old construction doesn't meet code anymore.
I
So
think that
now,
was an issue from like 97 to 2010. You saw very few new construction homes hit the market in 2010. Those were projects that were started in 2008 or 2009
right, right.
when there was still a housing market.
Something happened in
Something
2000.
happened. Exactly. So the new construction homes that were delivered to the market between 97 and 2010, those are generally considered to have the lowest quality from a construction standpoint, the
Gotcha.
lowest quality building materials. But I think once we came out of the financial downturn, and I remember like it was yesterday. I mean, those lots started to be built in the fall of 2011, and the product started getting delivered in the spring of 2012, and it just flew.
Yeah.
And those buildings were better quality than what was delivered just 3 years prior, but
Yeah.
by a long shot. And I think they've only continued to get better because because new construction's been hard. It's been hard for builders to build. They know there's a market for well-built buildings. And so if they increase their building cost, I'm guessing you probably know better than I do. If a builder increases their budget for building by 10%, they're probably getting another 20% on the back end
For
on the
sure.
sale price.
For sure.
So, because there's a market for it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
made the comment a few minutes ago that builders will just build wherever they can build. Of
Yeah.
course, one of the possible hurdles is maybe a municipality's desire for a certain type of housing stock, permitting, and that's and things like that.
Mm.
What is that environment like with the city of Chicago right now? Or if a builder comes to them wanting to build just take a city lot, right? A 4 unit condo. Is that something that they have pretty much an automatic green light on, or will it depend on the neighborhood and various political
Yeah,
conversations?
I think a 3 unit condo is pretty easy. That's a slam dunk. Because if a lot is zoned for a single family, it's a single family. A builder's not going to buy it
Right.
To build a condo. They're going to buy it to build a single family.
Sure.
But a 3 unit condo building is just one level up in the zoning, and they'll build a duplex down, a simplex, and a simplex. Now a 4 unit, we don't see those. I don't remember the last 4 unit condo building. Well, actually, I take it back. There is a guy here in Chicago that is building 2 and 4 unit buildings. He's doing a duplex down and a duplex up. And in some cases, he's building a 4 unit where they're connected, but it's still two duplex down, duplex up. So it's not 3 units stacked. I'm not sure actually what he's got some zoning trick that he's doing there, but that is a very specific product because those are expensive.
Yeah.
Those homes are expensive. So if you wouldn't build that in a B neighborhood, you'd only build those in A neighborhoods because they need to sell for probably 1.4 and up now. to make money, and that's a
Right.
minimum.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, I could see that happening relative to the various price points, as you mentioned, in those neighborhoods.
yeah,
As it relates to now, of course, as we talked about Chicago, there's very little inventory.
very little.
We'll talk about some challenges with that condos may have here in a few minutes, but one of the challenges is it can be difficult to get financing early on in a new construction project based on industry mortgage guidelines, Fannie Mae guidelines,
Yeah,
the
Fannie
term
Freddie.
non-warrantable, et
Yeah,
cetera, which we'll talk
yeah,
about. That's not the situation in Chicago right now. In most cases, they have enough buyers to meet the pre-sale before they close.
hmm
But in a more balanced market, is there any ideal point within the development where um, clients can get either, I guess, a couple questions. They can get a better deal,
hmm
which of course you would assume sooner the better, but also is it a risk reward scenario where if they're in too
yeah.
early, there's some risk to that, even though you might be saving 2 to 5% on a purchase price.
If you would ask me that question 3 years ago, my answer would have been very different than it is today. I think that inventory is so tight at the moment that I have not seen any product that's hard to sell in A and B neighborhoods.
Right.
Um, there's just a market for all of it. So I don't know. I don't. I think I can think of a few like developments off the top of my head that are on the periphery of a B neighborhood. I'm thinking like some West Lincoln Square
Right.
stuff that's being built, something that's very much like in Humboldt Park, closer to Chicago. I don't know what those guys are doing because I don't tend to, of course, if my buyer wants to buy there, I'm going to support them.
Right.
But it kind of goes against my, the fundamentals of buying a home. Buying something shiny and brand new is so important to you that you're willing to make that big of a sacrifice in location. I'm at least going to encourage my buyers to really think hard.
Right.
Because while I would never tell any of my clients where their people are, I tell them to think about where their people are.
Right.
Because they want to be happy living. I did this myself in 2007, 2006. I bought a new construction condo in a neighborhood where there was nobody that would fit into my social life. And in the 17 years I owned it, there
Right.
was never anybody, never, that fit into my social life. And it wasn't bad. I just didn't love living there.
Yeah.
And now I live somewhere where I love everything about the location, the people I'm around, the convenience of my life, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, it's easier to solve for, it's easier to make sacrifices on some little things like, do you need a 12 by 12 primary bathroom? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I wouldn't sacrifice location for it,
Right.
So that's where I'm probably approaching buyers a little differently than some agents that are like, hey, I need a commission check. You need a house. Let's go buy you whatever you want,
With sacrificing location,
Mhm.
that certainly means that ideal locations, at least relative to the market you're an expert in
Yeah.
Chicago, there aren't new construction condos being built.
Correct.
And why is that? Is that because those are being bought up for people building single family homes or?
No, yeah. So let me clarify. Sorry. So I should have been more specific. So if someone is going to these very locations on a busy street.
Yes.
Because, by the way, that's where most of the building is happening. It's not in 3-unit buildings. It's happening on main thoroughfares where they're grabbing a commercial building of some sort and building. I'm not a builder, but I'm not sure there's a high probability you're going to make money on a 3-unit building these days. Right. I think the probability goes up dramatically when you've got 8, 12, 20 units.
For sure.
And that's got to be on a busy street. You're not building that on any neighborhood street that I'm aware of in Chicago. And so to do that, they're selling at a price where I can make the argument with my buyers that they're going to have a better living experience in a condo that's 5 to 15 years old on a quiet tree-lined street than they would maybe stepping out onto Western.
Right.
With their dog and kid or whatever their familial situation is. I have no idea, but I just don't. Yeah, I don't know anybody that's like, oh man, my dream is to walk out my door and walk next door into the car dealership. There's a muffler shop right there. I just can't wait to live next to that muffler shop.
Get to know them, maybe get a discount when you need a muffler.
Yeah. So to me, those are, again, I'm not saying they're bad purchases, and I'll list them all day long, and they're easy to sell.
Right.
To me, when you talk about trade-offs, that's a trade-off that I think people underestimate what that trade-off is going to mean to them in the lived experience.
Right. For sure. So one of the big things with condos, as you know, is when a buyer goes in to build a condo, not only, of course, this is the assumption they need a loan, a mortgage. Mm-hmm. There's two things at play, not just their qualifications, but the qualifications of the building itself, whether that's
in a way that's always true, building, right? And whether
it's a 4-unit building or a 40-unit building. Mm-hmm. There's certain criteria that ideally the building meets. And that criteria is something laid out in mortgage guidelines that very few buyers are aware of and don't want to know. And so when we have to go over them, I could see their head is spinning. But Fannie Mae lays out the guidelines generally for the entire mortgage industry. Mm-hmm. They have specific guidelines that makes a condo project, quote unquote, warrantable,
sure,
which means they will purchase that loan. Even banks that don't sell these loans off to Fannie Mae, maybe they sell them to Freddie Mac, maybe they hold on to themselves, they'll generally try to conform to those rules. So if one day they want to sell off this pool of loans, they can say, okay, it meets Fannie Mae guidelines. So a lot of those things can boil down to reserves. Does the association have sufficient reserves? Are there any sort of structural issues?
Yeah.
The HOA delinquencies, if there's any litigation involved. Also, investor concentration. We're working on a project to get approved right now where the owner group owns 13 of 14 units. And so when you have a huge concentration like that, the concern for banks are, all right, one day this person or this group is just going to flip a switch and say, yeah, I know they're worth 500,000, but we're going to sell them all for 400,000 just so we can get rid of them. And now the person they just did a loan for with a $500,000 purchase price, is underwater. So what are some of the common issues you see with condo buildings, and what are some of the things that buyers of these potential buildings should be looking for? And what are real concerns, or what are concerns that maybe are really more bank concerns and not something that will impact them?
The number one issue, specifically with condominiums, is the complete lack of understanding around the level of assessments. So the assessment income that the association is bringing in from the condos within the building.
Right.
So many buyers that I work with, and they're not even first-time buyers. I mean, they could be empty nesters transitioning into their last home.
Right.
They just don't they look at, everything is a comparison, right? So they're looking at two condos. This one has higher assessments. This one has lower assessments. Now, of course, they're making an adjustment for amenities. Maybe this building has a pool. This building doesn't have a pool. But it doesn't stop there. I mean, what people don't understand is that assessments are only set by law at the time the building's built.
Right.
Right? The builder has to be collecting enough assessments to cover expenses, and you know this better than I do. They have to be covering enough in assessments to cover expenses plus 10%. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, 10% reserve.
Of the budget.
Of the budget, correct.
Doesn't even have to be real numbers. It has to be the budgeted numbers.
Yeah, in fact, I just had one the other day, $86,000 budget.
Yeah.
They had $8,700 in reserves.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything that would need to be fixed on that building that would cost less than $8,700?
You can't put up scaffolding for that much.
By the way, Fannie Mae next year is going to 15% reserves.
And it's still not
in
enough.
this particular case, it's going to matter.
It's still not enough. I cannot tell you how many buyers, and I'm in my 20th year of doing this, and I've represented over probably 700 buyers in that 20 years. I cannot tell you how many buyers I've told the first thing you should do when you after you close on this condo, besides getting your furniture in there, paint and all, whatever it is you want to do to move in, is get involved with the association and raise the assessments. Work to raise the assessments.
Right.
Because there's never enough money.
Right.
There's never enough. And everybody says, no big deal. What this building does is everybody just writes a check when the building needs the money. They don't want the association holding that money in a low interest bearing account. We'll just all write checks. What happens when you have a neighbor that can't afford it?
Right.
And they go into, and you pass a special assessment because the thing that you're trying to pass the special assessment for cannot wait.
Right.
So they don't pay, they forfeit, they go into foreclosure.
Or they sell at a below market price and drag down them.
But even then it's coming with the financial hit from the special assessment. So yeah, I mean, you definitely, there's just not a lot of buyers for that,
Right.
And so let's talk worst case scenario. So they go into foreclosure, they don't pay the special assessment. The bank takes 2 years. So for 2 years, the association's not been collecting assessments from this person anymore, because that's the first thing they're going to stop paying when they go into foreclosure is their assessments. And then in the state of Illinois, I don't know what it's like in other states, once that sells in a foreclosure, the bank only has to pay 6 months worth of past due assessments. So where do you think the rest of that money comes from? It comes from the other owners.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I live in a 600 unit condo association. We're getting ready to pass a $22 million or to do a $22 million project. I don't know yet what the special assessment is going to be. It's probably going to be 15 million. And we had a town hall the other night about it. And I said, what is the plan? I asked the board a question. What is the plan for, have you projected how many people are going to forfeit?
Right.
On this special assessment, because it's going to be a 5-digit special assessment. They have no idea. They said the last time we did a special assessment 20 years ago, it was very low, like almost nothing.
Oh,
I said, but the problem is that 40% of the people that the 30% that should be your concern were working 20 years ago. They're not working now.
Right.
They're living now on a fixed income, their retirement. So anyway, this problem doesn't get fixed towards the end. It gets fixed at the beginning. So that was a long answer to your simple question, is that if somebody buys a new construction condo or a newer construction condo, just know the assessments are way off from where they need to be. And even if the building isn't raising assessments and collecting that money, you need to make sure and set money aside for yourself. Uh, I cannot tell you how many new construction buildings have needed a new roof or new windows or something in year 8.
And Fannie Mae has just recently relaxed the amount that amount of insurance that is needed for new roofs now. Before it was full cost replacement. Now it's just current cost replacement. So that'll help out a little bit on reserves. Of course, it doesn't help out
Yeah,
on
but then
special
it doesn't
assessment.
replace the roof. I mean,
That's right.
that's the trade-off.
Right. And I would imagine in the scenario you're referencing, I think you almost have to calculate who are going to opt out, and then set the special assessment commensurate with um, calculating that, right? And
Yeah,
really, unfortunately, have everybody cover who the percentage that they anticipate on opting out.
that's right.
Um,
And that's why I think for a myriad of reasons, that's why, and this answers another key question about new construction. Besides a 3-unit walk up or a 6-unit walk up, right? So a 6 flat, 2, 3 flat, 2
Sounds
wide, 3 tall. Let me say it this way, Ed, in your memory, what is the last time you saw a new construction 2-bedroom condo in an elevator building delivered to the market in the city of Chicago?
I don't recall. It's been a
I
while.
don't either. I don't either. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist, but I don't remember one since 2012.
Right.
Everything is 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, almost everything. It's upmarket. It's being sold to people that are putting 20% down. The problem is with these, if you're moving to the peripheral neighborhoods and you're looking at these 2-bedroom condos, people are borrowing a lot more of the purchase price. They're the ones that are more apt to default on their loan for whatever reason.
Right.
For a lot of reasons. It's not one reason, it's a bunch of reasons tied together. I think I'm making this up as I go, but it seems logical.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And
the less
yeah,
down payment on balance is going to be a higher risk loan.
yeah. And so, we look in our building, which is a 60-year-old building, that 60, yeah, almost 60-year-old building, um, didn't recover well from the downturn. It's starting to now, but there's still 30% of the people in the building that are at 90% loan to value or greater on their mortgage. Those are the people I'm concerned about
Right.
when they get hit with a $20,000, $30,000 special assessment.
Yeah. And briefly on existing condos, what
Mhm.
sort of challenges would you guide a client away from purchasing, whether it be structural issues, certain types of structural issues known, or different some aspect of the building itself that you would really, let them know that maybe it's something to really shy away from.
Sure. I mean, I think there's probably an application in new construction condos for this as well. I just think it's, um, actually, yeah, it kind of comes from what I said earlier about the new construction. Whenever someone is reviewing the condo docs, the engineering study, whatever documentation is there from the association, um, the more problems or concerns that have been raised, the better.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Right.
Um,
So look at the board minutes.
yeah,
Go to a board
it's when
meeting if
there's
you.
nothing. It's when there's no problems on paper that there's problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. You don't hear this much anymore, but I remember back in the late aughts and early teens, there was a group of agents out there that would brag that the condo they were selling, that the building had never had a special assessment. I thought, well, that just means one's coming.
What's
Like,
coming?
it doesn't. I,
Reversion to the mean.
that's right. I'm more interested in the buildings that just had a special assessment,
That's right.
that just dug up all the dirt, bit the bullet, organized themselves, did something about it. To me, if someone just had a multi-million-dollar special assessment in their building, I think that's amazing. you know,
So what you're saying is you think people should buy in your building once the
or
special.
any building. Yeah. So, and so that ties into what I said earlier about the new construction buildings is you just don't know.
Right.
And you, what you said also earlier in the conversation about other markets where you've got 80% of the product is made by 20% of the builders, but in Chicago, it's the opposite, right? Or
Right.
it's, is that right? Yeah. Yeah. It's just a much more diverse set of builders out there. There's no, I don't think the standard for best practices is as high.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you have a JDL. Like that guy knows what he's doing, and he's building a good product, but he's also charging an ultra premium for it.
Right.
You get into these, you get into these smaller 3 and 6 unit buildings. He's not going to do that because he doesn't make money on it.
Correct.
It's a total different class of builder, and it's like it should not be surprising to anyone to know that even the best builder, if they can save a dime on something, they're going to. They are in business to make money.
Yep. For sure.
And
Um,
I did two new construction houses at the end of 2025, and both builders delivered. And by the way, neither of them were in an A plus neighbor or A plus location. One was a B section of an A neighborhood. So like one of the less desirable locations in a really nice neighborhood. The other one was just in a working class neighborhood on the edge of a really nice B neighborhood.
yep.
Um, but this is the first time in my career I've seen this. The inspector that I work with for new construction is a very meticulous inspector. He walked away from both houses going, "This is the nicest new construction house I've ever seen." So I do think that the seasoned developers, the ones that have been building for decades and have delivered a lot of product to the market, they are delivering good, probably the best product I've ever seen to the market right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Condo builders, developers, they could really be come from all sorts of backgrounds, right? They can come from a commercial background, come from a single family background. Generally on single family builders, that tends to be your contractors that make the leap to be general contractor, and they've generally lived in that single family world most of their life. But I guess sense that the condo developers can come from different places, and also there's a lot more of them, right? So I guess how does a buyer feel good about the developer that they're working with if it's not one of the known developers in the market that it might be charging a premium, as you say? um, how can they how should they approach that? Is building in your opinion, is building a 6 to 10 unit condo building tougher than building a high end single family?
Yeah.
What are the differences? All those things that a buyer should consider.
It's a great question, Ed. I am crazy to the point. So I treat my buyers as if I was buying, if it was me spending their money and I was going to live in it. So I will say this: I would not buy a condo in a new construction condo building unless I could draw a line from past projects to the developer. So I'd want to know what they've built before. And frankly, I would go knock on doors in that building
Yep.
and ask people about their experience of living there, now that a year or 2 or 3 has passed. It is just, in that condo that I bought in Rogers Park in 2006, we ended up having issues and we collected money. We took the developer to court. We collected $80,000 from him. Like, we got lucky. We happened to find that problem right before the clock stopped ticking. A lot of people aren't.
And in a market like Chicago that has low inventory and
Yeah.
there's, like you said, as much building as possible, I would imagine there's a lot of builders building those 3 to 10 unit condos that don't have a lot of experience, right?
So,
So
well, so it's funny. I think I don't want to say the name of the developer, but I have a client that just bought a resale up in Andersonville. Um, it's a 26 unit condo building or something, a pretty good size, not huge, but a good size one.
right,
And they just went through a $3 million lawsuit with the developer. And this developer has got, it seems like everything he builds has
is issue.
problems.
Yeah,
And the market kind of knows about it now.
yeah,
How did he get away with selling these a couple of years ago for what he sold them for? I think that people were that hungry for new construction that they were thinking they had justified to themselves that, surely he's not going to build another one that has
right.
problems, right? He did.
You gotta learn something at some point.
But he did. And my buyers just bought in this building as the association just collected from the developer. And again, I think they were concerned. They're like, wait a minute, should we be concerned that this developer built this building? I'm like, no, it's actually the perfect time
Yeah,
because the association just collected the money.
yeah,
If they found one or two problems, you have to trust that they didn't stop looking. While they had the developer on the hook, they tried to find everything they could.
and I
The
would
timing was
imagine,
so perfect.
if you do have sellers selling a unit due to a special assessment, and I've worked with a couple of those buyers before, they
Mhm.
generally tend to sell at the market price and cover the special,
Right.
or they sell at the net price, excluding the special where the buyer pays for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's six of one, a half dozen of the other.
Yeah.
Um, I think it really in this market. I don't know what it is in Chicago. I think that did I hear that it was some double digit number, the percentage of transactions that are paid with cash in
Oh, it's 25%
in
are generally
Chicago.
cash right now. Yeah.
Crazy, right? Those buyers don't care. They don't need the seller to cover the special assessment.
Right.
If they know what it is, they're happy to pay it.
Yeah. As long as they know what it is.
That's right. As long as they know what it is. So I don't, I think the concern is those buyers that the buyers that are borrowing a high percentage of the purchase price.
Right.
I don't know. It's not a friendly. It's the world right now is not friendly to people that are underfunded compared to the people they're competing with for homes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially on single family, you're competing to get, in homes that could certainly be traded for land value. Good luck trying to find one of those. Builder's going to pay cash for that and close in 15 days, and you don't have a shot.
Yeah. 3 years ago, I sold a $1.6 million house to a 27-year-old girl whose dad showed up and wrote a check, wired the money to the table. Like,
Yeah.
that's the world we live in now.
Yep. Yep. So I've got one more question.
Hit me.
Before we jump into that, I want
Yeah.
to thank you so much for this. This has been great. It's a real important market, especially in the city of Chicago. And I know people love to hear more about it. But so the last question I have for you is not real estate related.
Okay.
We chatted at one point. You said you had a couple tranches of favorite types of music.
Okay.
One of those tranches was, if I recall correctly, jazz between 1950 and 1970, or somewhere in that range.
Yeah, mid 50s to mid 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have what are a couple of your favorite albums from that time frame?
Well, I at the risk of sounding unoriginal, I own 5 different versions of Kind of Blue on vinyl.
Yep. Miles Davis.
Yeah, I mean, you've got. Now I feel quizzed on the spot, but there were 6 records that were put out in 1958. Kind of Blue was one of them. Ornette Coleman, The Sound of Jazz to Come.
Coltrane had one?
No, Coltrane was playing in Miles Davis's quintet, first quintet that year. Yeah. So Yeah, that's a big question. That's a big question, and I'm a little on the spot, so my brain went blank.
No
But
worries. And it's a question. I mean, music's one
there's
of
a
those
Sarah
things.
Vaughan record in there. There's an Ornette Coleman. There's a Miles Davis.
Mingus?
There's huh
How about Mingus?
Mingus. Yeah, might have been in that area.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Good stuff. No, thanks
yeah.
for sharing. I appreciate it.
No,
And
I
most
appreciate you
importantly, thanks
asking.
again for this, your time on this. This has been great. Look forward to getting this out, and we'll see you very soon.
This was really fun, Ed. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.